Hey, I'm Laura, and I'm the founder of Allswell Creative, which is a journal company. The name Allswell comes from a morning that I spent in Montauk. I went surfing, or I attempted to go surfing, and I got skunked, which means there were no waves. So I sat down on the beach and I journaled instead, and I wrote swell or no swell, all's well. And that was for me the genesis of this journey. I'm a lifelong journaler. It's always been just part of who I am. I started journaling when I was 8 years old. And I was looking for one lightweight notebook where I could both write and draw that had lines and also unlined paper. I looked around, couldn't find any, so I made some. And I showed it to my friends, and they liked them, and showed it to some stores, and they sold out, and here I am. The idea of journaling as a daily practice is an important one. When you put pen to paper, there are actual benefits that are intrinsic, that you don't get any other way. You don't get them like this, you don't get them like this. There's something about moving your hand across the page that has synaptic connections in your brain that provides you with benefits. Those benefits are mental, emotional, and physiological. So what I always knew inherently felt good actually is good. And I hope that through this process we can unblock some things for you to make it possible for you to have a daily journaling practice. Some of the things that I've heard from people that see the notebooks and they love them and they say, oh, these are really great or they're really well designed, but I have a stack of notebooks at home already that I don't use, or I don't know how to journal, or the most confounding of all, I'm bad at journaling. There's no bad, there's just do. And so what we're going to talk about today are a few tips to help you access that for yourself. We'll start a little bit talking about my journaling practice, and it's twofold. I journal in the morning, and that is an exercise that I use a timer for, and this all happened very much through feel. I created my own rituals over time, and I want you to do the same. But at least now I'm giving you some of the things that I use, and maybe you can start with those. I started initially with a timer that was on my phone, and I realized quickly that having my phone in the room probably wasn't ideal. I came across this small hourglass. Here, I'm going to show it to you. Hourglass. It's filled with blue sand, and instead of having my phone in the room, I would just turn it over. And what's great about that is it's less distracting. There's one less digital moment in my day. And this experience of writing in my journal is purely analog. That said, you don't need to buy a fancy hourglass. You can use an egg timer. You can use your phone, throw it on airplane mode, and that'll work out just fine. Specifically, people say, well, I have nothing to write about, or my writing is bad. There's no journaling that's bad. It's just about the process of putting pen to paper. You know, Hemingway said, write drunk, edit sober. I think he may have actually meant it literally, but instead I interpret it metaphorically. So if you have the opportunity to just give yourself permission to try to put things on paper without an external judgment or voice, that's really what journaling is all about. The word essay actually literally comes from the verb essayer, which is French, which means to try. Just try. It doesn't have to be perfect. There's no reader. And if you decide that you want to go back and use things that you wrote down for some creative endeavor, that's great, but you don't need to. This is just for you. That's what's so amazing about a notebook. It's got two covers, a front and a back, and nobody else sees it unless you choose to show it to them. So much of what we do in our life right now is for the eyes and judgment of others, whether they're going to be likes or not likes, and this is something that's just for you. My evening practice looks a little different. My evening practice tends to be more list-oriented, and I like to get things out of my head and onto the paper so that I'm able to have more nourishing rest. Lists are a great way to also lock into some creative opportunities. You can choose a theme for a week, you can choose a theme for a month, or you can just do what I do, which is the things that are sort of wandering around in my brain that I know I've got to focus on, but I don't want to have to take them into my sleep time, into my dream time. They're there on paper the next day for me. In terms of when you get stuck, if you are using a timer, let's say for 5 minutes a day, which is a great amount of time to start with, work your way up to more if you want, or just make it 5, that's fine too. And you say to yourself, I have nothing to write about. Well, write about the fact that you have nothing to write about, and use that as your prompt, use that as your tool. I know there have been times where I've sat down and I've been grumpy for whatever reason because I'm so busy and I can't believe I'm doing this silly thing, and then I write about the fact that I don't have any time, and then I realize through the act of writing there are certain points that are illuminated for me. Well, this is really important and I should be making it a priority, and it changes my relationship, not just to the act of writing, but to the act of how I manage my time and what I choose to make important. And there's no wrong thread to follow as you are putting words on paper. I think that also the notion that we are essentially creative people is important here. When we're kids, we're told that if you're lucky and you have an art program when you're little, you can just play. You're given crayons, you're given paints, you're given big pieces of paper, and just like have at it. And then as we grow up, we're told that we're either creatives or we're not. We're artists or we're not. And then we even go into further buckets. You're this kind of artist or you're that kind of artist. Well, creativity doesn't really work that way. Creativity doesn't happen in buckets and tranches. It's messy. It spills all over the place. And all of us have a unique creative voice. And the way to connect to that and nourish that is through the process of making space for it. And that's one of the things that journaling does. Putting pen to paper on a consistent basis is like, it's like setting a table for a beautiful meal. The idea that you show up and you do the work, and then the creativity just starts to flow. And it's that flow state that's good for you. And it's the flow state where all the yummy things happen and all the ideas come from. So rather than thinking about yourself as like, oh, well, I'm not a creative person, or I want to be a creative person, or I think I could be a creative person, you are. Just give yourself that permission, because creativity is in all of us. And if you nurture that practice, it's good for your life. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant. If you're an accountant who's creative, that sounds like maybe kind of sketchy. Actually, it's brilliant. It means you're going to be a better manager, a better problem solver. You're probably going to be a better parent or partner. And you're going to have a better sense of what's true to you, what's really real for who you are. And that's what a creative voice can show you and tell you. And really, when we think about it, our lives are a creative act. And that's what opening up to your voice can help you see. And that's what Allswell is really all committed to. So, permission, try, time, ritual, and knowing that you are, in fact, a creative person, those are all the gifts that we want to give you today. Thank you.